One can resist the invasion of an army, but one cannot resist the invasion of ideas. Good evening, MBA 05 and MBA 06. On behalf of Industry Interaction Cell, I, Amit Savlani, along with Yashaswini Mathur, welcome you all to the 4th edition of Annual Finance and Marketing Conclave of IIM Amritsar, Pariprekshya'. Pariprekshya' 2020 is a horizon for the budding managers of IIM Amritsar to meet the dignitaries from industries who have the expertise in the domain of marketing and have put forth exemplary stride in building the brands of their organizations.
Now we have a video prepared by Team Marcophilic, the marketing club of IIM Amritsar. I kindly request Lakshya Juneja from Team Marcophilic to share it with the audience.
Thank you, Yashaswini. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Lakshya, it is visible.
And I'm here with Mr. Rewritten, who is store manager at Apple Store.
So here I am with Bhavin Shah taking his interview about his consumer behavior in this lockdown period. So hi Bhavin.
Hi Vishesh, how are you?
What do you think your buying behavior has changed since the government has imposed a lockdown?
In terms of the buying behavior, it has changed a lot. Like earlier, I used to go on 3 to 4 dates a week, and now I can just go to 1 or 2 dates a week. So I have been really skeptical about buying things. So earlier, I did not think much before buying anything, but now I think like 2 or 3 times before buying anything.
To be very frank, the economic conditions were not that good, and so similarly the buying patterns changed. The purchase of luxury goods was reduced drastically. Essential goods and also the goods related to hygiene, the purchase increased a lot.
So what type of advertisement you feel more relevant?
It depends on the creativity they portray, and like in some of the implicit ads, it will be so indirect that we some of the times we will not be able to get what the product is about. We just see the ad, when in some of the ads we don't even get what the product is about. So yeah, it depends on the ad, how it portrays that product and how well we get to know about that product.
Have you ever overstocked during these times any product?
Okay, so a very interesting policy that the retail store near my place had was that they weren't allowing us to overstock. A very proper policy they had. If you want Maggi, like the products that could have been overstocked, right, and that could have gone into a shortage kind of a situation, they had put a cap on the quantity of those commodities that you could take home. Like you could buy maybe 3 packets of chips in one visit, and like for Maggi, it was like 10 packets of Maggi. You can't take more than 10 packets of Maggi. So that was it did not enable me to overstock. But then again, being a responsible consumer, we didn't have any plans of overstocking anyway.
As a consumer, do acts of a brand like CSR activities matters you more, or its advertisement matters you more?
See, more often than not, we really don't know what the CSR activities of a particular brand are. We only check the product. If the product is good, we buy it. And if we get to know that a brand is going in a good CSR activity, we'll appreciate, but that will not necessarily force me to choose one particular brand or other. So it is mostly dependent on the product.
In this completely unforeseen situation, what are innovative strategies that you have tried to better position yourself in the market?
If you would have seen you would have heard about the app which we launched recently called as GeoMart. So this is the most innovative thing that has happened for Reliance Retail because this thing was planned early release, but because of the coronavirus situation, our offices had been closed for a long time and the employees were not there. So we had to delay the release of GeoMart. The thing is with the GeoMart, what we are trying to ensure is everybody receives the order on the same day or maybe to the next day, and this has been ensured only because of our presence throughout the entire country. We have a strong supply chain. So introduction of this app has helped us, to cater to the consumer demands within very short period of time. So this has given us an added advantage, which if you would have noticed any other company like as Amazon, Big Basket, or any company, so you would have noticed that these companies are not able to meet the consumer demands within a period of 1 or 2 days. So this has been ensured by us, which has been made possible only because of the GeoMart and the strong supply chain that we have with us.
अकॉर्डिंग अभी ये कोरोना के कारण बहुत सारे कंज्यूमर्स का बाइंग बिहेवियर चेंज हुआ होगा, तो व्हाट हैव यू ऑब्जर्व, आपने क्या ऑब्जर्व किया है?
हमारे ऑब्जर्वेशन के हिसाब से अभी वर्क फ्रॉम होम का ट्रेंड बहुत ही बढ़ गया है, जिसकी वजह से आईपैड, मैक, जो फोन है उसका सेल्स बहुत अच्छा इंक्रीज हो गया है। आप देखेंगे तो बिफोर कोरोना ना आईपैड और मैक का सेल नहीं था, उससे बहुत ज़्यादा, मतलब अगर मेरा महीने का सेल आईपैड का 4 या 5 यूनिट था तो उसकी जगह 15 या 20 यूनिट हो गया है। सेम अगर मैक मेरा महीने का 5 या 7 जाता था, उसकी जगह 15 या 20 हो गया है, क्योंकि अभी मोस्ट ऑफ सभी कंपनीज जो अपना कॉलेज है, स्कूल से सभी स्टूडेंट है ना, घर पे ही वर्क फ्रॉम होम कर रहे हैं, जिनकी वजह से उनको आईपैड, मैक की जरूरत पड़ती है। इवन फोन में भी कई लोग वर्क फ्रॉम होम कर रहे हैं कि वीडियो कॉलिंग कर रहे हैं, इसकी वजह से उनका सेल बहुत अच्छा इंक्रीज हो गया है।
Thank you, Team Marcophilic, for such an amazing and informational video. Moving on, I would like to invite Farheen Kausar and Lakshya Juneja from MBA 06 batch to give a short presentation about today's theme.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. All right. Just 1 second. I'm just trying to. Is it moving? Could you see the next slide?
No, Farheen, we can just see the title slide.
Okay, just give me like 10 seconds. A very good evening to everyone. This is Farheen Kausar and Lakshya Juneja, and we will be presenting on the topic marketing and the new normal. Lee Auden said, content is the reason search began in the first place. With Google showing over billions of results in less than a second with just a click of a button, or in a more modern context, the touch of a screen, people have access to information like never before. The dynamics of the marketing industry are changing at a fast pace. The availability of content, specifically good content, is abundant. The challenge that countless marketers are facing is how to sustain themselves and the businesses during these difficult times, where the risk of going obsolete is really high. Now, there is an urgent need for a new marketing strategy. Almost everything is being looked at through what is called the new lens. At the time of crisis, marketing needs to be the strongest to make sure that they remain intact and relevant. With the pandemic becoming a part of our life for the long run, leaders across brands are rethinking conventional mediums while preparing for this new normal. Now, the fundamentals of marketing here won't change much during the COVID era. What is going to change rapidly is the way we communicate amidst the largest crisis that we have seen in the modern times.
These unprecedented times have led to a substantial change in consumer behavior. Buying psychology has changed. Consumers have become more selective. More goods are now being classified as essentials, treats, postponables, and expendables. There is a dip in consumer confidence, mostly for essentials or treats. The consumers wish to have it but are unsure of the optimal quantity to buy. A relevant example of this would be overstocking of groceries when the first lockdown was announced. Preference of online over offline. Online and home delivery retail businesses have seen 120 to 140% of increase in demand since the start of unlock period, and this change is here to stay as people are scared to go out and who earlier avoided it have realized the ease and convenience of it. Working with this changing behavior, 92% of the marketers in US, according to the Association of National Advertisers, tried adjusting their messaging pattern to be better able to connect with their consumers. But only half of them could gain a substantial advantage. Brands are now also trying to rope in social media influencers for marketing who have seen a 36% increase in their content engagement. Also, 65% of the marketers are facing budget cuts due to the pandemic. This was reported by Gartner, and these people are finding ways to work with the reduced budget.
Now, the stats on the previous slide has very well questioned the need for big campaigns. The challenge is to drive continued customer acquisition and revenue growth, but under limited budgets. Companies who are doing really well during this time have identified this challenge as an opportunity and have created the most efficient marketing campaigns. Instead of investing millions into one big marketing idea, brands are spreading smaller budgets across a much wider range of ideas, which are predominantly content driven. And then the new normal ROI today, which is the return on the individual, including soft metrics such as promotion and contribution to brand health. This idea has created a huge opportunity to transform the marketing function from an overhead into a profit-centric approach. The journey from customer experience to customer intimacy has been accelerated during the scenario. Marketing is shifting to entertaining, informing, and helping the customer through all means. Marketers are orchestrating and exploring new channels in order to meet consumer needs. They're opting for a more diverse marketing mix for OTT. Now, there has been a 30% rise in paid subscribers during the pandemic. Digital marketing, which is growing at a 40% rate. 4.57 billion people were using the internet in April 2020. Now, that is 59% of the world population. The online browsing time has reached an average of 13 hours from 1 hour earlier. Then TV advertising. The average daily of television reach grew 62 million during this pandemic. And lastly, retail advertising. Now, people are connecting more with dynamically localized ads and the ones that support causes. With the opening of stores in physical markets, customers are growing more sensitive to each and every touch points of these marketing strategies.
Due to the surge in online browsing during the pandemic, companies started to establish an online presence. The companies are working on effectively building a process for setting up the entire marketing chain online, right from awareness to efficient after-sales support. They are using tools like SEO and PPC ad along with conversational marketing. So, what do we need to know here? To analyze this data, marketers are working around the following questions. Starting off with the prediction phase, that involves using appropriate forecasting methods to determine future consumer behavior. That is, correctly anticipating the mediums to choose for targeted advertising. the correct balance of omni-channels, OTT platforms, retail, etc. The adaptation part. This involves ensuring that the developed model is flexible and can be molded with changing times. And lastly, making sure the plan is resilient to unanticipated market shocks. Some of the techniques marketers are currently using include predictive analysis during the prediction phase we just talked about, customer analytics done as a part of prediction and adaptation to reach the correct audience in the fastest way. One can simply analyze the current hot topics along with the relevant channels, social media sites, OTT platforms, entertainment channels, banner advertisements, etc., that are receiving high traffic volume. The current scenario has disrupted marketing teams and the traditional marketing norms. Marketers need to ensure that they are continuously adapt to the market dynamics. They need to be quick in resolving any and all concerns their buyers may face, both potential and actual. Marketers are focusing on consumer problem solving rather than just selling their product. Studies have shown that consumers are 131% more likely to buy from a brand after they consume some informative content. And lastly, risk management of all decisions and approaches that will be undertaken during the pandemic is a must. So, how are the marketing teams adapting to this new normal? 49% have noted that shifting team priorities and objectives was a major challenge and affected their productivity. 28% noted an increase in redundant tasks and status updates as notable challenges. Interestingly, only 22% noted the ability to effectively collaborate in real time as a challenge. Marketing teams are adapting to the pandemic by staying agile. Working remotely, these teams are effectively collaborating in real time, changing execution plans and realigning resources, budgets, using online platforms and more social media engagement.
The most important question marketers are asking is that, is there something our brand can do to help right now? These are emotionally challenging times, so it stands to reason that people are rethinking their relationships with their products. A study showed that an 85% of consumers connect more with a brand who is supporting social causes, and 82% for the ones who stand for something beyond just profit, and an 86% for the brands who are caring about their employees. Now, as brands are becoming more cognizant of what they say and how they say it, the content and the tone matters more than ever. One clear trend here is the propensity to be loyal to products that have behaved ethically during this crisis. This is the time for purpose driven marketing. So, how does the road ahead look like? How do brands build resilience that is not limited to the crisis alone? There will be a stark difference between the before and the after COVID world, no doubt. So, marketers need to recognize that we are in this crisis, to empathize with consumers' conditions, and show that they understand what people are going through. This is the time to build the right brand perception. It's said that the peculiarity of this crisis is that in one way we've never been more alone and yet also more united. Richard Edelman, in a very recent video, talked about how consumers are tired of being talked at. And this is the time when they want to be communicated with and involved in the process. Now, a brand is not a brand anymore. It has to become a community by leveraging and experimenting different platforms to represent shared values, interests, passions, and most importantly, that shared cause. And lastly, managing reputation. Now, during this era of fake news, customers want to be well informed and educated about the crisis. They're looking for brands to be more truthful and upfront. Brands need to rethink the delivery of proper brand value. It is too early to determine the exact scope of the pandemic's impact worldwide. What is certain, though, is that our world will never return to exactly the way it was. Necessity is the mother of invention, and marketers happen to be a very resilient bunch. We are all in uncharted waters, so a fundamental idea here is to implement strategies that not only apply during the pandemic, but that can also be beneficial in the return to normalcy. Because your customer will first buy in your story and then the product. Now, as Beth Comstock rightly said, and I quote, you can't sell anything if you can't tell anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fareen and Laksh, for introducing the theme of the conclave. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the speakers of today's event. Introducing the moderator and the first speaker of today's event, Mr. Narayan TV. He is currently the head of marketing at PayPal India, where he spearheads the marketing strategy and is responsible for the budgets, acquisition targets, and managing P&L from a marketing perspective. Mr. Narayan has juggled multiple roles across traditional marketing, product communication, digital marketing, and believes in the power of storytelling. A keen understanding of products and interest in driving business through marketing efforts has always been his forte, and his areas of interest includes working on ATL and BTL campaigns and product marketing. He has a well-rounded exposure in managing digital, on-ground and location-specific campaigns that deliver on ROI for different branches. Mr. Narayan has completed his MBA in Marketing and Finance from PSG Institute of Management. The next speaker of today's event is Mr. Rakesh Misri. He is currently heading the marketing division of Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited, popularly known as HPCL, as the Director Marketing. Mr. Misri has a rich and varied professional exposure of over 37 years. During this tenure, he held several important and senior level positions in marketing, pipelines, engineering and projects, human resources, and corporate strategy. As a member of the board of directors, he is responsible to formulate, steer, and monitor implementation of organizational visions, strategies, priorities, and plans. Mr. Misri is a gold medalist in civil engineering from NIT Srinagar.
Next, we have with us Mr. Aishwarya Pratap Singh. He has been associated with ITC Limited since the last 12 years and is currently the head of marketing, snacks, noodles, and pasta at ITC Limited. Mr. Singh is an FMCG professional with 14 years of experience in brand management, product management, consumer engagement, channel management, and sales and distribution management. A native of Pink City, that is Jaipur, in his free time, Mr. Aishwarya loves to explore new places, share his knowledge in the marketing domain, mentor young talent, and guide them toward their career advancement. Mr. Aishwarya Pratap Singh is an alumnus of the prestigious IIT Roorkee and IIM Ahmedabad. The fourth speaker for today's event is Mr. Harry Jose. Mr. Harry currently heads marketing at Syngene International Limited, a Biocon Group company and one of Asia's leading contract management research, development, and manufacturing organizations.
I think Yashaswini has lost her internet connection. So I will continue from here. Next, I would like to introduce the fourth speaker of today's event, Mr. Harry Jose. Mr. Harry currently heads marketing at Syngene International Limited, a Biocon Group company and one of Asia's leading contract research, development, and manufacturing organizations. Brought in to set up the marketing function from scratch at Syngene, Mr. Harry's core focus areas include brand building, ROI, and strategic marketing. Prior to Syngene, he had a 12-year stint at Infosys, the last 5 years of which was as the head of marketing at Infosys BPM, which is now a $1 billion in annual revenues organization. Stints at direct marketing startup at a marquee brand consultancy and at one of Asia's largest training service organizations rounds up his professional experience. Mr. Harry has completed his MBA from the Institute of Management, Nirma University of Science and Technology, Ahmedabad. Now, I would like to introduce the next panelist, Mr. Lovedeep Walia. I would kindly request everyone to keep your mics on mute. So now I would like to introduce the next panelist, Mr. Lovedeep Walia. He is currently the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at More Retail Limited. Prior to this, Mr. Walia has worked in sales, marketing, and business leadership roles in global corporations like Johnson & Johnson and Chico Baby in both India and in the US. With a career span of more than 17 years, Mr. Walia has had a strong affinity towards a customer-centric approach and entrepreneurial mindset. He has also played a pivotal role in transforming many departments and business lines. Mr. Walia completed his MBA degree from University Business School, GNDU Amritsar, and advanced PG program in International Trade and Management from NMIMS Mumbai. Our guest would be joining us shortly. Kindly wait for them. Mr. Aishwarya has joined the meeting.
Hello, everyone.
Our director has also joined. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Aishwarya, sir.
Hey.
Good evening. Hello, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Mr. Rakesh Misri has also joined us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hello.
Hello, sir. I think Narayan sir has also joined us.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, sir. And Mr. Harry Jose has also joined.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, sir. We are just waiting for Mr. Lovedeep Palia to join and then we will start. Mr. Lovedeep has also joined. Sir, are you here?
Hi, good evening to all.
Good evening, sir. So we will start from here. Peter Drucker, popularly known as the father of management thinking, once said, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, It is to act with yesterday's logic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, respected director, our esteemed guests, faculty members, and the students of Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar. I, Amit Sablani, would like to welcome all of you to the fourth edition of Pariprekshya', the annual finance and marketing conclave of IIM Amritsar. Learning has always been a force that powers the pedal of success. And what could be a better platform for the brightest minds to come together and enrich the students with their epitome of experiences? Management is efficiency in climbing the ladders of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. We are fortunate to have such a leader to guide us, our director, Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy. I would now request you, sir, to kindly address this August gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. On behalf of IIM Amritsar, I would like to welcome the panelists, students and faculty and the CNBC TV18 team. I also want to thank all the distinguished panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedule and welcome them to this marketing conclave of 2020. The year 2020 has been an eye-opener for our lives. It has created a new normal for us to adapt. Most of the time, we have been confined to our homes and have become quite wary of going out. Social interactions have been very, very minimal. But the new normal has not broken the spirit of the IIM Amritsar community. We have been running our classes as per schedule on virtual mode for the past couple of months. We have adapted to this situation. What you see today is an outcome of that. It is not just classes. All our events that we have been carrying out over the years are continuing as normal. As an institution of national importance, we can't afford to shut down. Our lives have been going on normal under the new normal. We have also used this time to develop new programs for launching in 2021. An executive MBA program, which is predominantly on virtual mode, but in a hybrid format, is set to be launched in 2021. Needless to say, this is a 2-year regular degree that we are going to offer for working adults who do not want to take time off from their work. In addition, we have also used this time to cater to our stakeholders in different forms. We also have 2 new programs that are going to be offered starting next year around June. Long-term certificate programs in business and management and business analytics. Further, we also have 2 new Master of Business Administration programs which are residential, one focusing on human resource management and another one focusing on analytics. Despite the COVID or because of COVID, we have grown this year. We have about 364 students this year compared to about 246 last year. The lockdown and its impact on the economy and consumers has not dampened our spirits. On the other hand, it has made us stronger as a unit. We believe in the dictum of survival of the fittest. We want to be fit as well as flexible in catering to the needs of our stakeholders. I am sure that other companies are also facing similar dilemmas and also the issues. How are we going to survive post-pandemic? How is the competitive marketplace going to change? And what will be the future? As consumers, for the past few months, we have been so used to ordering it online or delivery at home and all that. So what is going to happen to the brick and mortar stores in future? What are the new strategies and practices companies must adapt in order to survive? As consumers, how will our behavior be shaped in the future? In other words, what is it that we can expect post-pandemic world? These are some of the questions that come to my mind, and I am sure that the same questions are there in the minds of several other people as well. And our esteemed panelists, with their vast experience, can throw light on these critical and other important questions for us. I believe the next couple of hours will be very enlightening for us as well as for the world in general. Thank you very much, and I wish the conclave a great success.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your kind thoughts and enlightening words with all of us. Without further ado, I would like to steer the conclave towards the discussion on the theme by introducing today's guests. Mr. Narayan TV, Head of Marketing at PayPal India, Mr. Rakesh Misri, Director Marketing at Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited, Mr. Aishwarya Pratap Singh, Head of Marketing, Snacks, Noodles and Pasta at ITC Limited, Mr. Harry Jose, Head of Marketing at Syngene International Limited, and Mr. Lavdeep Walia, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at More Retail Limited. We also have among us Mr. Abhishek Datta, Executive Director HR of HPCL, and Mr. Sandeep Roy, General Manager Capacity Building at HPCL amongst us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. The theme for today is Marketing in the New Normal, and the moderator is Mr. Narayan TV. I request Mr. Narayan to commence the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Yashashwini. It's indeed a pleasure to be sitting with all of you this evening, and a warm welcome to everybody who's joined us. Right, I feel very fortunate that I get to moderate a panel with people from such diverse backgrounds. Right, so we have people who are experts in the B2B space. We have people from the FMCG industry, and of course, somebody from the PSU industry. Right, so and that too a giant at that. So honestly, what I'm looking forward to is a session that's filled with a lot of ideas, and hopefully we all go back at the end of the session taking away nuggets of information, right? So the topic for the day is actually marketing in the new normal, right? So before we get into the topic, just a few initial thoughts, right? About January, if anybody had asked us what is social distancing, most of us would have thought that it's actually unblocking somebody on or blocking somebody on Facebook, right? But today, social distancing is a very common terminology, right? High fives are no more there. People have come to accept namaste as a new form of greeting, right? Across the globe. So that's what it is. So what is it that marketing actually gets from this whole new normal is what we're going to discuss about. So I'll fire off right away. And the first, just to set the context right, I'd like the initial thoughts of each of my panelists on what it means to be in their particular sector and how has the pandemic actually affected each of them and what they've done. So just initial thoughts, and then we'll go deeper into the subject. Let me start off with Mr. Rakesh, and then I'll get the thoughts from others as well. Yeah, Mr. Rakesh, over to you.
Thank you, Narayan, and good evening, everybody. Very pleased to be here amongst all of you, and especially the young, bright minds of IIM Amritsar. So coming to this question of yours, so I'm in the petroleum industry. So, and basically most of it is in the essential services sector. So in this particular area, what we do is ours is an integrated refining and marketing company. So we import crude oil, refine that in our refineries, and then market those products, which are varied products. Many of those come in the essential services like petrol, diesel, LPG, and many of these come in like discretionary kind of products, which people may or may not buy. So where we actually compete with a lot of private sector there. So, but a large chunk comes under essential services, and that is where the whole challenge came in because of this pandemic. As you are aware that most of the crude oil in the country is imported. About 80 to 85% of the crude oil in the country is imported. We have surplus refining capacity in the country, but crude oil is imported, unfortunately, a large chunk. And since these imports are planned quite some time back, and you have to place orders and all that, and suddenly this pandemic comes on you, so this whole game changes. So what do we do with this crude oil, which is all coming in? The oversupply, a glut, and then you can't run all those refineries because the demand has vanished totally. So in fact, in the first month of this pandemic, like April, our demand plummeted to something like 30 to 35% normal. and imagine that the crude oil and all that raw material is coming in. So that was something which was quite difficult to just cope up with in the first month itself. And we slowly came to terms with that. So we kind of adapted to what was required, renegotiated some of the contracts, delayed some of the parties also agreed to some extent, and did our inventory management so that we could take our supplies up to the last point, but without actually supplying to the end customer and storing at various points pan-India. So refineries had to be kept operating because some of the essential products were required, but still refineries, if they give petrol, they also give diesel. So if one product is required, the other is not required, that is where that whole imbalance came in. So that was a big challenge. So we had a lot of challenges in the sense that how do we keep the refineries working? How do we balance it out within the products? Then, of course, we have the challenge in how do we actually assess the demand going forward? Because it's not that I can run a refinery for 10 days and stop a refinery for 10 days. These are huge plants. They cannot be run and stopped just like that. They have to be kept running. So if I stop a refinery, it takes almost a week if I had to restart this whole refinery again. So the whole thing had to be kept running. So again, demand forecasting became a key. And we never knew anything about this, what is going to happen. It is kind of, it was not that known unknown. It was a kind of unknown at that time. It still is in terms of Don Rumsfeld. So it still is that kind of thing, unknown, and we are still coping with it. We're kind of adjusting to it. So the first 2 months or so were quite difficult. Then we had liquidity issues, challenges and all that. Then we have partner issues, supplier issues, channel partners issues, a lot of things were there. But then we have slowly come out of that. And today we have reached a level that we didn't have any dryouts of the product anywhere till the remotest part of the country. And especially the villages and all did not have that kind of lockdowns in the beginning as the metros had. So we had to take the product right till the end, see the requirement of the customers there. LPG requirement was much higher than normal because the government's push on LPG that it has to reach to the remotest part in the weaker sections of the society. So that was required. So all that came in. So we had quite a few challenges here in terms of balancing the supply chain management, and also in terms of how do we keep our employees engaged, motivated. So that is where this digital thing came in, and we started communicating more on the digital. So actually what happened in digital, I'm actually feeling now that we are communicating actually much better and much more frequently on digital than we were doing actually face-to-face at that time. See, our locations are in far-flung areas. So it has come in handy, although it has been forced onto us, but it's come in handy to actually communicate much more. And that is actually face-to-face through this video conferencing or whatever platforms we use. So we have been able to talk to the employees, keep them motivated, talk about their health, the safety, the SOPs they're using, and also the safety of our customers and channel partners and all that. So that was another challenge, which hopefully has been tackled well. And then the third challenge which came in was the customer's engagement. See, the demand had plummeted of the essential services where the customer goes to a retail outlet and gets your petrol or diesel. But there are a lot of other products which we sell, like lubricants, where a lot of, there's an FMCG product which we sell. Some 30 serious players are there selling this product. So how do we make that available to the customer? Customers' demand has plummeted, industries are not there, transport sector is not there. So how do we keep it ready when the industries start, maybe in a span of say a week or 10 days? So all that we had to plan and take it right to the end point, at the customer's end point. So when they are ready, so we are able to give it to them. Another issue, big issue, was the liquidity of the customers and the channel partners, working capital of the customers and the channel partners. So how do we help them out? So this has taught us quite a few things. In fact, we take it very negatively. That's a very depressing scenario. But if you see the positives out of this, actually quite a few positives out of this has come. Although initially we feel that these are a bit forced onto us. One positive which I feel is adaptability. I'm amazed at how adaptable we are, how resilient we are to these challenges, and how quickly we can come out of any kind of depression and start working as if nothing has happened.
So that is one. What it has taught us again is empathy. How do we now understand the customer better? How do we now understand the employees better, their requirements? Like the customers have a lot of working capital requirements. They're also big industries. So whether we can give them credit facilities, we can arrange or facilitate credit facilities when we ourselves are in a problem in the as far as liquidity is concerned. But then understanding and helping each other out actually goes a long way in building relationships for a longer period of time. So that is what we felt we could do. So we could overcome many of these challenges. And today we are in a position that, if I give you an example, in lubricants, where we are number one in the country, in the first 4 months, we have actually achieved our historicals of the previous year. Despite the pandemic, despite all these lockdowns, we have exceeded the historicals of the previous year in the first 4 months. So it is kind of getting back there. It's not there yet. So we are around 85 to 90% of the normal. Hopefully, we'll end the year at about, say, 85, let's say about 90% or so for the full year. Hopefully, because many of these things are opening up, industries are opening up, and our products, many of the products are such that they are essentials and they are required. So it has been a new experience, totally new experience, but it has taught us quite a few things. You might feel that it's depressing. The way of working is different. We are working from home. We are talking to people in a different way, and all those things are there. But this has taught us quite a few things which will keep us in good stead going forward, not just in terms of the competition, in terms of the marketing strategies, but also in terms of human behavior as a whole, in terms of the improvement in our culture as a whole, which might remain, which might sustain for quite some time, even when the pandemic is over. So some of the initial thoughts that how did we take this forward?
Thank you so much. That really helps. I mean, the part that most people miss about marketing is the fact that marketing is so much about demand, human behavior. It's an amalgamation of a lot of subjects, right? And people think it's only about advertising and what's seen as a logo and so much. There's much more nuance to marketing, right? That really helps. So with that, let me actually ask your fellow participants, Lovedeep, and then Aishwarya, and then Harry, in that particular order. Lovedeep, if you could tell us what you think.
Thank you very much, first of all, to the IIM Amritsar for inviting me. I have a very close association with Amritsar because part of my management I've done from GNDU Amritsar, so I can somehow a little bit relate to the geography and and the culture and things like those. So very excited to be part of it and honored. Like everybody, but unique to grocery business. So I represent a grocery chain called More, as you all would know. We had a very unique situation. Our March versus April sales, our demand went up by about 10x when the pandemic happened. And on the contrary, our supply went down by 10x. So we were one of the unique situation where we no more were bothered about the sales. We were bothered about how do we supply to our store and make sure the business continues and the store continues. And suddenly the role of marketing got twisted from a demand generation function to a service function, right? And one of the biggest challenge for me and my team was to kind of bring the frequent weekly changes on consumer behavior to the organization, which helps them to relook at their strategy on each geography, how the Bangalore would react, how the Punjab would react, how the Telangana would react. So our job was not to create demand. Our job is completely turned into becoming a service function, where our biggest and most important task was to bring the consumer insights into the larger part of the organization, which helps them to translate and kind of service and position themselves slightly better than the rest of the competition. So our delivery business, for example, which is when you call to order, went up by 500 times. And there is no wherewithal for whatever infrastructure that you can put up, you just can't manage that demand, right? So half of the organization which was not in operation and sale were, by the way, doing the sales, including myself. I mean, we're doing the supply chain part of fulfilling this demand. So I think if I were to summarize what happened to us was the organization. This was a time when it really tested how agile and how nimble an organization is. And two words that comes to my mind to kind of reflect if I go back to April is piece around courage and prioritization. So this was opportunity for many of the leaders and people in the organization to show courage and go out of box and look at opportunities to serve customers. And we had a lot of heroes where the whole of the marketing job was to kind of pick up those heroes in the organization who were going out of their service and going and delivering to senior citizens and delivering to people who were having a very small kids at home. And suddenly the atta was finished and we got a call at 7 a.m. in the morning that we don't have anything to cook and we can't come out. And so the whole organization and whole marketing job was to kind of fulfill those aspects of a consumer. And second, of course, I think the very important part was to prioritize. We realized that everybody in the world is looking for building one or the other app or a WhatsApp channel or this and that to just go and encash and use opportunity to continue their business. But the issue with such initiatives, if you're not very comfortable in as an organization to kind of right from a customer to the service people, then you end up deprioritizing the core aspect of the consumer. So what we did was we picked up our battle. We said that we want to pick up things which we are really good at, and home delivery through phone channel was the most easiest thing to do, by the way. And if any one of you have an access to Nielsen, our share in the first quarter of pandemic, which is April, May, and June, this financial year was about 20-30% higher than the in the industry, only because we managed to ensure that our user channels where customer is comfortable, at the same time organization is comfortable to service. We just opened that. We had phone channels where people are just calling and giving their core items of 5-10 items, which then gets home delivered and things like those, right? And this also gave us a little bit of headroom to build our technology solutions. I mean, and therefore a part of our organization was just doing and getting ready to provide a technology solution like WhatsApp and other solutions that we provided 3 months later. But I think that's something that I personally feel very proud about. So courage and prioritization was two very big aspects that our organization picked up at the right time and pulled that trigger instead of kind of diverting the attention everywhere else. So I think that's what I would start by saying.
Thank you, Lavdeep. Aishwarya, you're on mute, I guess.
So thanks a lot, and it's a great privilege to be here and to share my experiences. And I'll start by telling the obvious, which everyone knows, that yes, FMCG was one of these industries that was doing reasonably well and better as against other.
Sorry, I just lost you. Can you hear others?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So what I was saying was, if I tell you that FMCG industry was the first one to recover and is doing well, I think it will be quite obvious. Let me tell you the backstory and how things happened in the background and why, how, and what are the fundamentals of this. To start with, why FMCG recovered fastest, and in fact, in many cases, we did not even see any kind of a drop, because it is the fundamental of how consumer lives. It is bedrock of consumption. It is how consumers' life is evolved into a respectable human being, and that's how the society works. And that is why we saw the initial rush coming towards the essential items only. The second part, what and when this kind of recovery started happening. So as we all know, March 22nd, suddenly we saw a lockdown happening, and we were not sure of what will happen and how it will happen. But in our mind, we were thinking that probably 1 or 2 months down the line, things will settle on. We never realized the gravity of the situation. But what we saw clearly coming was that for at least 1 or 2 weeks, we saw extreme drop in sales. And that was largely because the lockdown crippled everyone. We had no understanding what to do, how to do. Our channel partners, while modern trade does play a role, but we also have a huge salience coming from the general grocery trade. Close to around 1.2 to 1.3 crore retailers are there. The typical mom and pop grocery shop forms about 80 to 90% of business for FMCG. And that's where we saw that sudden lockdown has stopped everything, but consumers were continuously trying to come back to the shop to buy things. And in my mind, I created those three specific bucket. One is what we call an essential item. If it is rice, it is dal, it is pulses, that's what you will buy in the first go. But then there are also non-essential needs, which I will not gather. You will not die without eating them, without consuming them, but this is what you require if you are staying at home. So that's what we saw, sudden increase in sales of staples and pulses. But within 14 to 15 days, we started seeing that the so-called non-essential item also started increasing salience. And that's when we started seeing the biscuit, the chips, the noodles, the sauces, all these items which are important for you to, which is part of your overall diet, or even personal care products also started increasing. Then obviously there were certain products within FMCG also, what I called as avoidables, and I can still live without that. Probably chocolates, confectionery, hair oils, hair color. So there are multiple different categories which took a longer time to recover. And between these three, it is quite obvious that while these essential items grew tremendously in the beginning, that they started tapering down and they are stabilized at a higher level, but it's still 10 to 15% higher than the previous numbers. The non-essential items were slow to pick up, but after that they started growing up, and between 30 to 40% of growth is what we are seeing right now. And definitely the avoidables are taking a lot longer time, and it will take some time to come back to the normal number what was prior to that. But let's come to the third part, which is how we managed to do that. And there are two major parts of how we did that. The marketing, so-called marketing, or even running a business works on two vectors, which is being given by Mr. Byron Sharp in the book called How Brands Grow. It's a very simple framework. It says to succeed in business, you need to be mentally available and you have to be physically available. These are the two vectors of success, no quarter, nothing else. So these are two vectors for which we had to work. One thing is mental availability, which means you have to stay salient, and being physically available means you have to be present in the shop when consumer is going to buy that. So let's come to the mental availability part. The first part that we all realized was, and thankfully FMCG was relatively less impacted because of pandemic. So the business kept going, and that is why we never stopped advertising. So on 1st of April, 1st of May, 1st of June, 1st of September, and as of now also, we continue to advertise. One of the factors that we always consider during this session, should you stop advertising? The fundamental says that never stop advertising. It is important for you to stay salient. During this difficult time, consumer needs more trust, and that is why it's important to be on air or advertise in whatever means you want to do that. The second was about relevant launches, not the non-relevant launches, but the personal care space, the personal hygiene space saw a lot of launches. So even ITC also launched 6 products within 12 weeks space. It takes months to launch a new product, but we realize this is the need of the hour, to launch relevant products, not the non-relevant products, but launch those products which have the proposition that consumer is looking for. Immunity was one of the important factors the consumer was looking for. Hygiene was one of the important factors the consumers were looking for. So we launched a lot of products within those range. The third thing was about communication. In communication, there are two parts. One part is about those so-called essential products which requires relevant communication. So if you have a personal care or a hygiene related product, you will advertise accordingly, because then you will be talking about your hygiene, about safety, about the need of the hour. But then there are certain non-essential need related products. where you don't need to specifically start talking about those pandemic related things. In fact, we saw that consumer wanted to get away from that. And that is why, so I handle a couple of brands. One is salty snacks, chips and noodle, and I handle the noodles portfolio. There, if I start talking about, obviously, you know that it's quite obvious. I should not be talking about the pandemic, but I have to be on air. So what we did was we picked up relevant trends. Dalgona coffee was one trend which was being picked. We saw that work from home is one of the trend which is coming up quite big. People are sitting at home, they are really bored. And that is why we created humorous communication around Bingo, because Bingo is all about being fun brand. Noodles and atta, they are forming one of the important recipe for cooking at home. So we created hordes of recipes for consumers to experiment, because people were sitting at home and eating probably 5 times in a day. Then what do? You need more and more recipes. So you're looking at solutions which are relevant for your category. That is what we did. Every single brand, every single marketing team looked into the relevant trend, which is important. So for juices, immunity makes a bit more sense. That is why immunity boosting juices were launched. But for snacks, it is more important to keep consumer engaged in a lighter mode, because that's what the brand stands for. So these are the multiple vectors on which we work to ensure that they are mentally available. As far as physical availability is concerned, as I already said, that general trade or the grocery shop forms a big part, followed by the modern trade. And then e-commerce is close to around 1 to 2% right now, going up to 4% at some point of time. But it was important to ensure that we are available in the shop. And that is why I think, as already mentioned by previous panelists also, it was not very easy to be available in the shop. Why? Because the factories were shut. It took some time for us to start manufacturing again, to get the manpower in the middle of pandemic, to get manpower to start factories, to start the trucks running from one state to second state, because obviously there were some permits and issues related to transportation, which we were able to manage, and government really helped at some point of time after initial paralysis when everything was stopped. But then we realized that, I mean, it is very commonly said that trucks are the lifelines or the bloodlines of the country, because they only move stuff from one place to the other place. Then there were distributors, retailers, so close to around 1.2 to 1.4 crore outlets is where the product has to be placed. The lockdown very strict in the beginning, but later on, the grocery shops were allowed to open, and that is when we started recovering business. So I think, as Lavdeep also said, demand was not exactly the problem in the beginning. Creating relevance, being physically available in the shop was more important, and that is what we have been doing day in and day out. And I think, like Narayan was also telling, that marketing is not just marketing. There are multiple facets to that. When I talk about physical availability, it is about being present in the shop, which means I have to sell, which means I have to do a proper demand planning, which means I have to produce also, which means RM and PM, which is what we call as raw material and packaging material, needs to be which needs to be planned accordingly. Even a lot more innovation which happened. We started tying up with direct to consumer, like with Zomato, like with Domino's, because we saw those also as relevant channels. We also started placing our products in the dairy shops or even the vegetable vendors, because those were a lot more accessible to consumers. So a lot more of action happened over there, and I'm really glad that we were able to cater to the need of the consumer, because that is what is really important at that point of time. In that journey, we were able to grow also, and we continue to grow. But as long as the fundamentals are fine, I think we will continue to be like that. And I think one thing that I keep telling is that for us, there's no new normal. The fundamentals of marketing are same. For us, it is more about business continuity and continue to do what you actually believe in.
Yeah, thanks, Aishwarya. I mean, I loved each bit of what you said, except for the fact that you called chocolate and Carol is non-essential. I mean, I'll differ there, but so Harry, over to you, right? So largely, you come from an industry that's into B2B. What's your perspective on how life has changed? What has it meant for you?
Thanks a lot, Narayan. And before I start with the answer to that question, thanks a lot to the organizers for giving me the chance to be a part of this panel. It's always fascinating to hear the experiences of my peers in marketing. And it's always a good opportunity. It's always an interesting, opportunity to interact with promising marketers of tomorrow. As you said, Narayan, I mean, we are a B2B services company, but more importantly, Syngene is a contract research and development and manufacturing organization, which is a part of Biocon, which services the global research, development and manufacturing requirements of the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry. We service over 360 clients. So I will, give my answer specifically with regard to the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry. So the pharma industry is, of course, as you know, an essential services industry, more so than ever now that we are in the midst of a pandemic. It is also a manufacturing industry. What it meant is that, people have to be in the laboratories to either do the research or the development or the manufacturing. So this was an industry which was really hit badly in the beginning of the pandemic because social distancing norms meant that, in the laboratories, you have to space it out. So which meant that you have to have very, very innovative ways of bringing people to work, because before everything, the health of our employees is extremely critical to us. So which meant that we had to adopt a whole lot of new things which we had never tried before. Some of the people had to work from home. The people who are coming to the office, we had to arrange logistics, the transportation part of it. We had to ensure that social distancing, was maintained in the office, in the laboratories, etc. Spaced out, so shift systems, zoning systems, because we have more than 5,000 people on the campus. So to ensure that, in the event of a pandemic, how do you actually respond to that? So all of those things had to be taken care of. And of course, we are a company which supports the pharmaceutical industry. So obviously our scientists also got into the act. So, we ended up helping the government of Karnataka by setting up an RT-PCR laboratory on our campus. So far, we have done almost 60,000 samples. We are also proactively testing our own employees and are in the process of actually extending this service to the nearby companies in Bangalore in the initial phase of things. So as an industry, the impact from a manufacturing perspective was, of course, to figure out how to do business continuity. Then, of course, there is another impact of it, which is about finding a cure to the pandemic itself, as well as to ensure that finding a cure and the manufacturing for other medicines do not stop. Right? So which also meant tackling a whole bunch of other things, including supply chain requirements, as well as making sure that, so initially at the onset of the pandemic, one of the things which happened within the pharmaceutical industry, and once it became clear that we are in this for the long haul, one of the things which happened was a resetting of priorities to figure out which are the projects which requires immediate attention right now, which are the ones which we can probably push a little bit, maybe to the next quarter or maybe to the quarter after that. So it also meant that for a B2B services company like ours, there was a need to have a whole lot of conversations with the clients, and which is one of the places where marketing also got into the act, because you had to tell your clients that as a company, while there is a pandemic going around you, we are also taking care of business continuity. We are also trying to ensure that your projects will not be impacted beyond a certain point. So which meant there had to be very, very spot on communication. You had to communicate how it is that you are combating the pandemic in your organization and in your community. How are you taking care of the health of your employees? How are you ensuring that the supply chain, so when you are servicing the requirements of 360 plus clients, the supply chain requirements are also extremely varied. So you have to source material from multiple countries across the globe. So how do you take care of that? How do you ensure that the project management and everything is not impacted? So there is a bunch of those kind of realities which we had to tackle, which are, some of it is common to manufacturing industry, some of it is very, very peculiar to the pharmaceutical industry. One of the silver linings that I'm seeing in all of this is when you look at a vaccine or any of the drugs which come out into the market, typically it is an 8 to 10 to 12 to maybe even 15-year period of research and development which goes behind it. The pandemic itself, we came to know about in late December. That's why it's called COVID-19. And we are in, beginning of October now. And hopefully sometime during the next year, we would actually have a vaccine in the market, which is like, you're cutting out almost 8-9 years from the entire development cycle. Some of the learnings that we have picked up in terms of collaboration between multiple teams, sharing of information across borders and geographies, picking up, using artificial intelligence, using, literature combing, finding out all the work which has been done before, collaboration, all of those kind of learnings which have come in, as well as some of the newer methods of working, hopefully will help us to cut down and accelerate some of the timelines in bringing life-saving drugs into the market, which is what I see as one of the silver linings. So that's essentially about the impact on the pharmaceutical industry. From a marketing perspective, probably I'll take it up in the next question.
Sure. Excellent. So the one thing that's clear to me is that none of the panelists had brief views, they had in-depth views on whatever we wanted to, right? So, and that's a good thing. So, what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of variety, I'm going to shuffle the order of questions and then also the order of in which I go about asking these, right? So let me start by asking Lavdeep about how do you approach media planning in these times? Now, the reality is, as marketing students or as people involved in this particular business, there is never a precedent that has been there in the past to actually guide us through how you approach media planning. So how would you look at it, given that you are in a business that's front-facing to the customer? Yeah.
See, the significant change that I see is that it has just fast-tracked our media plan by 5-10 years. Already, I was seeing a big wave of moving away from a traditional mass media, where you have a classic television, you have radio, you have newspaper, prints, dailies, and things like those, used to contribute significant chunk of your media budgets. And in last few years, we're seeing how things are moving towards non-traditional media. And anyways, there was a wave there, but pandemic, because of obvious, had actually fast-tracked all of that. And what I was telling team last year, for us to kind of get ready in the future for next 3-4 years, we had to do it in one month, and this was a huge change in the way the whole things were set up. First, the biggest part of the whole planning process that I, very few organizations, including us, did have a technology mindset in the marketing, and that's a weaker area I personally feel when I talk to more of my colleagues outside retail, that we have built marketers to look at only consumer from traditional media point of view in India. And of course, it's not a general statement, but we have seen large part of people are highly dependent on creating a mass media level of awareness. But what we essentially saw, that the role of digital and role of targeted media started playing a big part, particularly because the attention span has gone up significantly. Because when you're at home, chances of your I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of opportunity to see, we call it OTS. So OTS was as high as, I think, 5-6 seconds, which has come down to now half a second on YouTube and half a second on Facebook, right? So, the whole consumer adoption to the messaging and consumer, perception towards the message has completely changed because of the behavior change dramatically. So there was no reason to be, looking at, 15-second ads that we used to have earlier. And therefore, there was a multiple disruptions. One, the kind of message. Second, who and when you're sending it. And third, which channel of, which vehicle of media that you're using. And we moved completely to the targeted media, because we were also fortunate to have mobile numbers of our customers. And so we knew them. Quite honestly, first month was a general awareness building messages, when I really realized that it's not making sense. And all of us these days look for personalization, right? If you send me a message which doesn't value to me today, maybe it's valuable tomorrow, I will just discard this message. And it also impact your brand. These are the things which create brand debt, right? As we call, more and more such irrelevant messages will just take away your brand imagery to all-time low. So therefore, the idea was multifold. One, to become more relevant. So we looked at a lot of analytics. We were very fortunate to have Amazon support. So we looked at a lot of tools that are available, and we start looking at personalization at scale because we talk to about more than 5 million customers in a month. So we cannot do anything for an individual. We'll have to create clusters of customers. And we 3 months later, we created a media mix modeling where I can, to a certain set of customers who only get nudged by looking at SMS, right? So I have those cuts available now, which I never had earlier. I have a cluster of customers who are influenced by a certain specific media, right? There are some customers who will, if you reach out to them through SMS, they will just not respond because that media is something which is a full-fledged fatigue there for that respective cluster. So we looked at those parts. So just to summarize, I'm talking many things, so I just want to summarize. So one, we looked at clustering the customers. We gave away, of course, the complete traditional media. We no more, at least at that point in time, we no more. We're still now going back to print, but we stopped print suddenly, and we moved everything to targeted media. So we started reaching out to customers one-on-one through SMSs. And IVRs is something that we introduced, which is automated calling. You can also personalize messages to automated calling, which was the help of technology. And we moved large part of our budget through Facebook and YouTube and things like those. So those were the media vehicles. But really, the game changer happened when we started clustered them more sharply and became more relevant to specific period and specific days of their relevance. So that became a significant.
Thank you. That helps. So see, for the sake of variety, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask Aishwarya his thoughts on this thing, because I remember he mentioned about Byron Sharp, right? And Byron Sharp is all against, going completely targeted into segments and stuff like that. He talks about the power of mass media. So what's your view? Since you both are connected in the same industry, what's your view, Aishwarya, on that? Aishwarya, you're on mute.
So yes, as you rightly said, have a different view or opinion, and because I've been in this field for some time, we've been seeing the trend. There's no question about the increasing relevance of digital marketing and media, and even most of the FMCG marketers have increased it from a low single-digit percentage to a early double digit, which is from 2 to 3% to around 12 to 13% of our marketing spend is moving from traditional to the digital marketing. So there's no question about ignoring the importance of digital as a medium, which is anyways increasing, and it will continue to grow. So we have close to around 500 to 600 million monthly active users of internet. And that is what we have to cater to, because ultimately consumer will be going over there. But we also have to look at the core. To give you an idea, every single day, right? Every single day, there are 600 million people who watch TV. So all said and done, the core or the base still lies with these mass media channels. Yes, radio took a hit during this pandemic. Outdoor definitely took a hit in this pandemic, and they are recovering right now. Print had an initial setback because of its untouchability. It is recovering right now. Print is one of the most effective medium for local area marketing, but TV continues to rule. To give you one more data, pre-pandemic, 3 hours of 40 minutes. 3 hours, 40 minutes was the average viewing hours for one viewer, which has gone up to 4 hours and 20 minutes. There's a tremendous increase. IPL, the first match saw a TVR of 10.4 as per media report, which was 7.9 last year, which means 30% increase. There's a 30% increase in viewership of first match of IPL, and IPL is supposed to be the best ever viewing platform. That time OTT and other platform did not do well. Why? Because people are sitting at home, and that is why, while there's an overall increase which is happening, the TV continues to enjoy a larger share of increase in the consumer's mind space. Also, in certain cases, I'm saying that yes, there are certain brands and categories for which digital will play a more important role. So there are certain brands that I handle, which are quite youth focused, and their consumers are moving away from TV to digital. So there are what we call as cord cutters. These people are moving completely. They just cut their cord and they're not watching TV. They are moving to digital only. And that is why there are close to 250 million people who are watching OTT. And that is where the future is going to be. So there's no doubt about that. But we also have to consider the housewife, which forms one of the, she is the decision maker for the grocery list that is being prepared at home. And it is taking some more time before consumer of that demographic is more inclined towards the digital medium. So we maintain a healthy mix. I'm not telling that we are not investing. I'm only saying that both are important. One is more important right now because of its size. The other is more important because of its growth. And that is how we craft our offering. So for a particular brand which has a TG, which is more inclined towards TV, we will continue to do that. Like you rightly said, it is extremely important. And more so for the categories in which we operate. We are talking about those 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 15 rupees price point, where the question is that how much you will target, right? How much you will target and get a specific set of consumer, or should you just do spray and pray, right? And sometimes I believe that spray and pray will be financially more viable, in which you reach out to 100 people and with a 50% or even 10% success ratio, conversion ratio also, you still end up reaching a larger mass. And because we are talking about 5 rupees and 10 rupees product, it is universally more acceptable. And that is what that book also talks about. If the product is largely appealing to a mass, then you should just advertise and ensure that it is reaching to as many people as possible. A funnel of that, which we call as awareness to consideration to trial to further repeat. That funnel will still have a larger numbers at the bottom rather than doing a niche targeting. But like I said, I was just giving you a different perspective. That does not mean that we don't do that. Like I said, we have already increased investment. And at some point of time, we were actually advertising only on digital because that's where we found relevance for a couple of brands, certain brands that we were doing. Again, it's a healthy mix between all media mix options available with us. And we try to optimize basis the TG, basis the time, and basis the avenues available.
Just to add, TV here, and it's actually addition to what Aishwarya is also talking about. See, media is an art and science both. Okay, it's a combination. Media is actually function of your communication objective and where your TG is, right?
Right.
Therefore, all of those decisions are very, very flexible depending on which category are you handling and what is your message. Right? So that's part. The second most interesting part that I have realized personally, that some of these targeted medias give you impact on measure. So this is what I was doing earlier, print and things like those. My impact was not, I was not able to measure the impact to the customer. Here, because the targeted specific customer, you can see how many get influenced, how many really transact the is really the next day buying, right? So it's not a lead period between the message awareness and the transaction. So therefore, there are a combination of things that work. So it depends on the category and the message that you really want to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much, Lavdeep and Aishwarya, right? So these are, all of what you said makes a lot of sense, because ultimately you want to do what you want to strike the balance between what's a short-term objective as against building a brand in the long term, right? So my next question is specifically to Harry, right? Because the B2B side, just on the FMCG side, we spoke about media planning and stuff like that. For you, channel takes a completely different direction, right? So in these times, how have you managed working virtually as far as your outreach channels go, or how do you see changes on the client side of things?
Right. So just to give a perspective.
Just 1 second, Harry. If Aishwarya, could you put yourself on mute? Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, Narayan. Yeah, so just to give a perspective, from a B2B marketing perspective, there's really no mass media, right? I mean, in any B2B services company, anywhere between 70 to maybe about 80-85% of the annual revenues are going to come from existing relationships. So it is mostly about how do you build relationship with your most promising set of customers, and how do you kind of keep upselling and cross-selling to them over a period of time. So it's specifically in the pharma world, from a physical marketing perspective, most of the activity used to be focused on events. Some of these are events which you do on your own. It could, or you use an agency to set up, things like roundtables or specific conferences for yourself, or you participate in large-scale events. The larger events would be anywhere between 35,000, 40,000 people participate in some of those. So that kind of completely went out of the picture. And in B2B services, the salesperson moving out and going and meeting customers is a very, very important aspect of how you actually hit your top line. So that also completely went out of the window. So from a pure marketing perspective, the emphasis essentially became on the marketing team to find new channels which would replace those opportunities for face-to-face connect for your salespeople, which was either in the form of exhibitions and conferences which used to happen, or the salesperson moving, flying out and meeting somebody in their office on their own. So, which is where really, these some of the aspects of what the other two panelists just mentioned kind of started coming in. So the channel, apart from the physical channels, the other channels are typically the same set of channels which everybody talks about, mostly the social media channels. We also do Google display, network advertisements, the GDNs, display ads and things like that. We use Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those mediums are also used. But till now, the emphasis on attribution or the ROI part was largely lacking. And that, I think, is going to be a common thread that you will find with every one of the panelists, focusing on what is really giving us returns. So if we were to do an event, for example, and some of the cases, in our case at least, some of these events had to be set up by the marketing team itself, because you could no longer use the ecosystem to kind of, set up the events for you. Because the physical events were not happening, or some of the providers that you were using to help you to set up events were no longer able to support you the way that they could. So for example, we started setting up webinars on our own, and we have been doing about 8-9 webinars during the pandemic period, and each one we are getting about 200 odd people attending, about 400 people registering, etc. So each of these then become conversations which we follow. But when you set up an activity, primarily before the pandemic, the marketing team would typically be focusing on the experience during the event, okay, and leave the outreach part of it, bringing in the audience, to attend these kind of events, would be either with an external partner or with the meeting organizers themselves. Now we had to also bring in that element as well. So which is where we really started looking at multi-channel marketing and trying to almost move that into an omni-channel kind of a world. So essentially, when you do a webinar, for example, where are you getting most of your returns from? Is it through your email automation platforms, through which you send it out to about 10,000, 15,000 people in your database? Is it out of paid advertisements on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google display networks? Is it out of organic media? Again, the post which you put up in LinkedIn or Twitter. And so essentially you end up with about 7 or 8 different channels, okay? And we kind of, over this period of time, we built up an attribution system which helped us to really monitor what is the returns that you are getting out of each one of these channels. By building up UTM codes, we were in a position to track which channel is giving you the maximum number of people and how many of them are essentially ending up converting. And tracking that all back into Salesforce, which is our CRM tool, we were finally able to figure out how many of that resulted in sales conversations, and finally how many of them resulted in an RFP or a win. Right. So these levels of details was never really there in the past. So we never really used to focus on that at this kind of a level. So 2 things which we are seeing, I would say. One is a different way of utilizing channels, rather than having different communications going out on different channels. You are now essentially looking at a campaign and saying which all channels are we going to use, how is it all going to be monitored, how are you going to do the scheduling, what is the messaging, how is it all tying together, and then you are asking how are you able to track the returns on all of it, right? So these are 2 things which is happening. Apart from this, the other trend which I'm noticing in my peers as well, and definitely in my organization, is the emphasis of creating your own channel. So whether it is on Twitter or LinkedIn, rather than depending on only on the external channels, try and create content on your own and do the reach out. It kind of helps us a little bit more than probably people who are focusing on B2C, because we are looking at a smaller target group, and some of them we already have a relationship. So now we are trying to make sure that the communication that is happening with our target group is a lot more customized, it's a lot more contextual, and we are following it up on a much more detailed basis. So these are the two trends that I'm really seeing happening in the B2B space.
Interesting. Thank you. So my next question is to Rakesh. Essentially, marketing is as much about people as it is about ideas and whatever happens in the intangible section of the world, right? So I wanted to know, see, there is right now a split opinion between big organizations across the globe saying...
Sorry, I just lost you.
Sorry. Okay. So my question is, there are organizations that are saying that work from home is a boon in disguise.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost you.
No problem. Am I audible?
Hello.
Am I audible?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello.
I guess somebody else will have to speak up right now, because for me, it's fine.
No, I think it looks to be his network. Rakesh ji, can you hear us? I think it's his network.
Yeah,
hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir, Rakesh.
I can hear you too.
Great. So if you can listen to me, so largely the question that I had, organizations right now are split in the middle, right, on the verdict of whether work from home is a boon in disguise or
Narayan,
productivity.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Rakesh has dropped out of the meeting. I'll get in touch with him.
Got it. So until he comes back, let me move on to my next question, right? I'll go back to Lavdeep right now. My question is around, you mentioned, you touched upon agile marketing, right, as a term. And so if you could be specific as to say, what is the one thing that you've done in the past 6 months that you may not have done before the pandemic happened? Is there an example that you would like to?
Sorry, Narayan, I just lost on this. I got disconnected. I just come back. Could you please repeat the question? So sorry.
Sure. So Lavdeep, let me come back to you.
Sure.
I'll finish off with this question, right? So see, my question to you was on the people side of things, right? There are organizations that are saying that work from home is really bad for productivity. And there are others like the IT technology sector that is saying that, we want this to become the new normal. We want people to be sitting out of their homes and then working for us. What do you think is going to be the impact to marketing students? Let's say there is a fresher that comes into an organization. Do you think they're really going to get impacted in terms of deriving knowledge firsthand from somebody as a mentor?
Yeah, if you say that, what would be the thing in the new normal, and if you got your question right. Like today we're talking about work from home, especially in the IT industry and many say finance sector, where people actually are going to the offices and doing the job. And now they have an option whether they want to go to the office or they want to come back and stay at home. And I mean, the result is still there. For a company like ours, where most of the action takes place in the field, so work from home from most of the people is not an option. We have to run the operating locations. We have to run the manufacturing plants. We have to run the operating depots and terminals and LPG plants. So for them, that is not an option. They have to go there in the field and do that job. But still, we have a large chunk of people who go to administrative offices, people like us, and where the option is there. So what I feel, going by the experience, what has come about is, there should be some flexibility. I'm not saying just stick to one part or stick to office or stick to work from home. We need to be more adaptable and flexible and attuned to the situation. If the results are coming for a particular industry by working from home, so be it. Actually, the industry saves quite a bit of money in terms of real estate. Why have so many offices and all that infrastructure and all that? You can save the time of transportation, save money and time on that, and you can actually motivate people and actually pay them more by working from home and giving the same results. But it again depends on the industry. Probably you may, if you do it as a rule, people will feel bored, like we are feeling bored, people who are sitting back at home, so they want to go back to office. So what I would suggest, there should be more flexibility and adaptability. So allow the people to take their own decisions. Have that kind of a latitude given to the people. Result is important, of course, with the governance in place and ethics in place, but ultimately result is important. So whether it should be strictly work from home or strictly in office, I don't think that should be that relevant. Whatever suits, sometime from office, sometime from home, ultimately the result is what is important for the company and for the individual.
Got it. Thank you. It's very much like marketing, right? Keep it flexible and see how it goes along. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, of course.
So Lavdeep, my question to you was around, agile marketing, and you mentioned that, right? So if you could just tell us what you've done in the last 6 months after the pandemic happened, and something that you wouldn't have done in normal times.
No, the first thing that I personally feel that we would have taken at maybe minimum of 5 years to reach there was the whole personalization aspect, which is where segmenting the customers very, very sharply through the use of cutting edge analytics. And I would have taken at least 3 to 5 years horizon to build that kind of infrastructure, and which was built in 3 months period. And now we can cut them more sharp basis on the behaviors rather than just the transactions, and that's something that that's point number one. Second, we first months so looking at various media optimization models have taken a much longer time. Like if I were to note to get you earlier, I would send all messages and then see only half of them would see message and off then until really transact.
Yeah, 1 second, Lavdeep. Harry, could you put yourself on mute, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So we had done this media attribution model, which we would have not done otherwise. This is basically looking at again specific catchments, how they react to specific media and things like those. Most importantly, that I would say is more came from the pressure of staying afloat and being profitable is the cost effectiveness, right? So the my budgets were like 1/3 of what it used to be, right? And still I had to ensure the show must go on. And the most important thing that I realized we've done under pressure is to build a robust ROI process around every penny that is spent, which we would have again, I don't think so we would have done to the core that we've done now in such short period of time. So I can now track individual CAC, as we call customer acquisition cost at an individual, and I can look at each catchments, how they're behaving on my ROI, and can readjust my entire marketing mix basis of that. So it has really made possible only because we were put under tremendous pressure on both cost side as well as the complexity of having a very fewer medias available to us. So these are broadly 3 distinct things that personally feel have done well for us.
Thanks, Lavdeep. So see, in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is now split 3 questions and then we'll go into the more interesting part of the conversation, right? So Aishwarya, if you'd like to, if there is one marketing trend that you think is a lost form and you'd want it to come back, what would it be?
Hello?
Well, I don't think so. We are able to.
We are not able to hear.
Sorry, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great. I was speaking to myself. Thank you so much. So, so actually, if there's one marketing trend that you would like to make, that you would like to see make a comeback, what would that be? Something that you've not seen in the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever.
So, not exactly in marketing, because in fact, when I look into marketing, like I said, to me, sales and marketing forms a single window, because that's what it is. And one thing which is actually impacting us is out of home consumption. Right, and that is something which is taking time. And when I say out of home consumption, it impacts both sales and marketing. But like I said, I am not talking only about marketing. I'm talking about business. That business is taking some time to come back. Apart from that, people are moving more towards health and immunity. Hygiene is becoming concern. All these trends were anyways there. People were moving towards more healthier products. Hygiene was there. But one thing which is really impacting businesses is out of home consumption drop. And despite opening of lockdowns, it is taking a longer time. You rightly started by telling that social distancing was something which we were not aware when this whole pandemic started. And it is a business killer. I mean, it is disaster for business if social distancing is there for a longer time. And like I said in the beginning also, we all thought कि 2 महीने का नाटक है, कुछ दिनों खत्म हो जाएगा, then we'll start getting to our regular businesses. Nowhere it is coming, and it is taking a longer time. It's a killer for businesses. I'm not talking only about services industry, which is definitely going to lead us to a drop in consumption overall and drop in GDP. But I'm also talking about a typical out-of-home consumption, because I'm talking about snacks, which is being consumed outside, and that business is down. People are not using the transient medium. That is why the consumption is dropped, and because of that, the marketing avenues are also being reduced. So I think that's something that I'm really missing. And yes, the recovery is happening, but recovery is happening slowest in the out-of-home consumption space. Hoping for that to recover, so that we have a more comfortable business running. And lastly, I think when I say that this is impacting us, this is impacting everyone. Like I said, we are talking about a product. We are into business in which the GDP, the consumption or the disposable income with the consumer impacts our businesses, right? And that is the reason if out of home is down, the disposable income will be down, and that will lead to consumption drop for industries like us in a longer run. So it's an overall impact which is going to be there for us.
Thanks, Aishwarya. So last two questions. One to I'm going to be totally unbiased here. I'm going to give one to Rakesh and the other to Harry, right? So, and Rakesh and Harry gets to go first. So I'm going to give you a chance to play Nostradamus right now. If you had to see marketing evolve into something in the next 6 months, what do you think it's going to look like? Crystal ball gazing. I know nobody has the answer to it, but if you had to take a shot, what do you think it'll be?
I would say it would be more integrated, in the sense that, I mean, the inputs which are coming in from, say, it used to be much more fractional. It used to be silos earlier. Now it is more, the various campaigns, the various channels coming together, the ROI part. It all means that, I mean, there is a more holistic awareness of what is the real role of marketing, which is a combination of connection with the customer, retaining that relationship across the entire life journey of the customer. So that is one trend which I'm really seeing, which is essentially a combination of knowing what are the channels to use, how are you telling that story, and the data points coming back, allowing us to really monitor whether it is really being effective or not.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So the last question before we move to the second segment of this is to Rakesh. And the question is around, research shows that at this point of time, consumers actually value a lot of empathetic messaging as opposed to, pushing their product down the throat, right? And again, there is this whole hierarchy of, do you put your employees first when it comes to marketing, because employee marketing is huge, or do you put your stakeholders first or the consumers? How do you think companies should approach that?
Yeah, I would say that we prioritize one over the other. That will start another controversy. So, but this is extremely important that we take care of the stakeholders as well as we take care of the employees. And this pandemic has actually shown us that what is the importance of this particular thing. So we feel that if you show that there's a bigger cause than to just make profit, the customer values it more than just what you have serviced the customer for. So if they sees the company doing much bigger, say, a national cause or a bigger social cause or a bigger noble purpose is there, I think that helps in the brand value of the company. So today, like safety and health and that the kind of help you can render to the society, I mean, give back to the society what the society has given you. It's not just CSR. Do voluntarily on your own. And the employees of the company can do that on their own. And the company as a whole can do on their own. Like migrant workers we had seen. So if you could just help the migrant workers on the way, give them food packets and see that they come back. Don't hold on to their salaries. Don't cut their salaries. Pay them full because of the kind of lives they're living. So those kind of messages are actually much bigger. So I think that helps in building the brand, as well as ultimately it will sustain your operations. It will sustain your sales and your marketing. So I think that's a very valid point. And similarly, take care of the employees as well. Keep them motivated, keep them engaged, take care of the smaller things. I'll just give an example here. Our HR department has done a wonderful thing in this pandemic period. They have also engaged professional counselors. See, a lot of people, it's not just the health, physical health, the mental health, the people is going down. They're feeling depressed at home, not able to come out and all that. So they can consult those counselors and they can get those, advices and all that, so how to remain motivated and engaged. So those kind of things are also required as far as the employees are concerned, and the stakeholders are concerned at large.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to the more interesting part of the segment. And to be fair, these are questions that have come from the students of IIM Amritsar, right? So if anything looks amiss, I am not to be blamed. You still get to answer these questions. It's a rapid fire round, and we'll start off one person at a time, right? So if they sound difficult, again, the caveat and the disclaimer, which all fintechs do really well, is that it's not on me, it's on the students, right? So with that, let's start off with Aishwarya, right? It's just 10 questions. The one thing that I request of all the participants is that you don't get to make choices. You don't get to explain why. Some of these questions look difficult, but you still have to make a choice. It's a hard choice. Worst case, you say, no, I don't want to answer this question. Right? Yeah. So your favorite marketing guru?
Varun Shah.
Okay. Mass marketing or target segmentation? I think I know the answer to that, but still.
Yeah, you know the answer. Mass marketing.
Okay. What is ITC in one word?
Trust.
What's your favorite ad and why?
So very difficult. Actually, it's very difficult to say. Probably Fevicol really helps. Consistency about Fevicol.
Okay, and why you would want to answer that, or it's like
it's just about being consistently talking about same message and extremely relevant. Picking up the nuances of the Indian market. There's no way anyone could have thought of the situation that they picked, and they created a bond around that. That consistency is important, which is what they maintain all the time.
Got it. Something closer to home is, if you were to buy one product of ITC right now, what would it be?
Sorry, I missed a few words. Sorry.
If you had to pick one product of ITC to buy right now, what would it be?
Obviously my products only, noodles and pasta and snacks. Bingo.
Not want to let go of sales, isn't it? If not a marketer, what would you choose as a career?
Very difficult, actually. Probably a teacher.
Not bad. One sector you would like to track, or let's put it this way, if not for this sector of FMCG, what is the other sector that you would have worked for?
I think information and technology is where a lot of action is happening, probably.
Got it. So one thing you would tell yourself if you could go back in time, and let's assume you were a fresher, what would you tell yourself?
Very important. Take life very easy. I mean, don't take too much stress on yourself. I took a lot of stress. And that's a message to all of you. Take life easy. There are always second chances, third chances, fourth chances.
Okay. In one, content marketing?
Sorry?
What is content marketing to you in one word?
Content marketing is only about being relevant to what consumer is looking for, rather than telling what I want to say.
More than one word, but still okay. One advice for IIM Amritsar students.
Like I said, I mean, if advice means slightly longer, I mean, life is tough. It's very tough time. And I know that all of you are going through a really tough time. But like I said, there are always second, third, and fourth times. And those people who continue to stay consistent, consistency is the key to succeed in life. Nothing else matters. Intelligence, dimag wo sab piche reh jata hai. Ultimately, it is consistency that brings you ahead of others. Number baad mein are less relevant. So just be consistent about what you are doing.
Thank you so much. That's all I had for you, Aishwarya, and well answered, right? So I know I don't have coffee hampers and stuff like that, but we'll go with you, Harry, right now, right? So Harry, the question for you is also, who's your favorite marketing guru?
Daniel Kahneman.
Okay.
Not really a marketing guru, but he is a person that I follow.
Makes sense. On a Saturday evening or any day evening when you have lots of time, what would one find you doing? Reading a book, listening to music, or watching a TVC or something else?
Usually it will be reading a book, but there would always be some interruption from somebody from the office, unfortunately.
Got it. So if you had and this is specifically catering to your tastes, right? If you had to launch a brand, a new one, and data tells you something, since research is all about data and that's the field you're in, but your gut feel feels different, what would you pick?
Trust your gut for the first 6 months, then take a call.
Okay. Syngen in just one word.
Sorry?
Syngen in one word.
Innovation.
Okay. Marketing to you is one word.
Connecting.
Okay. What is the one thing you don't like about marketing?
It never ends. It is a verb. It doesn't stop.
Okay. One ad that you love and why?
So for the past 1 year, I've been skipping ads. So I'll skip this question also.
Okay. Makes sense. Unusual for a marketer, but nonetheless. So one thing you tell your younger self.
Yeah, it's the same message which Aishwarya said. I know it's more than one word. So whatever you see right now is not the end of it. Something new will always come up.
Okay. So largely, I mean, that's the same advice you give to the students as well, right? I'm hoping.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if not a marketer, what would you be?
Probably a teacher or a novelist.
2 teachers. Right. Okay, Lovedeep, we'll go with you next. I'm reserving Rakesh for the last and probably the best, right? So who's your marketing guru, Lovedeep?
Oh, often I follow David Acker, and he's somebody that I love reading about.
Got it. And again, a hard choice. Pick one, digital or ATL, TVC.
Depend on the category that you throw me in. In the current scheme of things, I would go with digital.
Great. Okay. Market share versus profitability.
Profitability any day.
Great. More retail to you is what?
More retail is life now for me.
Excellent. If not a marketer, what would you be?
Politician.
Wow. Teacher and politician. What's better learning to you? Is it fiction, autobiography, a marketing book, or a podcast?
Podcast I love. Podcast is more refreshing, and this mode very, very, I would say, impactful.
So on a Saturday evening, what would you be doing? Listening to music, reading, watching a TVC, or playing a sport?
Pre-pandemic, I would be out playing a sport. In the pandemic, I think depends on, I don't know, maybe with the kids or something like that.
Got it. One advice you'd give your younger self?
I think done well. So I think I wouldn't say something, but yeah, like Aishwarya said, I think we need to take things a little easy. Now after 15 years, I can say that 15, 17 years of experience. So I would say at least the rest part of the life should go a little more easier than what it was this 15 years. Yeah.
Spoken like a true politician. You mirrored Aishwarya's words. So your advice to IIM students would also be the same, I'm guessing, right?
Well, no. So from student perspective, I would only say that constant learning and consistency, which he mentioned, are very important aspects. The skill sets and all. I mean, whatever you get taught in education, the world outside is very different. You know, you manage stakeholders, which has not been taught. You manage your emotions, which are not been taught. You manage your, fear and anger, which has never been taught. Right? Still, nobody has taught us. So I think the important part is to kind of be a constant learner and every day kind of keep moving the needle, even if it's 0.1%. It's very helpful.
It's a brilliant piece of advice. Thank you. So the last bit is, what's one ad that you really like? And I'm hoping you're not going to do a Harry on me right now. And why?
So yeah, see, I honestly don't recall a specific ad, but the brand I love advertising is Burger King. Personally, I love provocative advertising, and they are extremely good because they're second best after McDonald's, of course. So, and they do the great job in ensuring their message is rightly understood.
Great. Thank you so much. So our last participant, Rakesh, I'll start off with the normal question, which is, who's your favorite marketing guru or entrepreneur?
Not a particular marketing guru, but if you ask me about a book, which is my all-time favorite on marketing, is actually on leadership. That is Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Great book. So one thing that most people don't know about marketing at a PSU giant like HPCL?
People think about marketing as about market share. Like I think Lavdeep mentioned or Aishwarya mentioned, it is not just that, it is profitability, and there's a lot of competition in PSUs as well. So it is all about competition. It's all about customer.
Excellent. What's one ad that you really like and why?
Again, not a specific ad, but on the basis of consistency, Amul ads I really like.
Nice. If not a marketer, what would you have been? And I know you have your interest around history, sport, other things. So
yeah, maybe that's a cliche now again. Probably a teacher. Two people already has mentioned teacher. So yes, I think I would be a professor.
No, it's a brilliant profession. Thank you.
The fact that we all are part of this panel discussion means that we had some interest, and that is why we came over here. And probably that's the reason why we are all always wanted to.
Yeah.
So marketing to you in one word.
Marketing to me in one word is customer.
Okay.
Customer.
What's your favorite quote? Or if you were to go into a company and ask anybody, what would you rather say to them as a quote?
I would say, not to the company, I would say to the employees of the company or like the younger people, fail fast. And there's no harm in failing. So that is how you will learn very quickly.
It's a great motto to go by. If you could rent a billboard for a day, what messaging would you put there? And it could be something.
I would say HPCL. Sorry.
It could be a personal
Could
message.
You please repeat?
It could be something related to you, or it could be something related to the company. Any messaging that you choose.
I would say we are all about delivering happiness.
So, one advice you would like to give your younger self, what would that be?
Again, it was mentioned earlier as well. Don't take life that seriously. Just take it as it comes to you and enjoy every moment of the life. It's never going to come back.
Excellent. So that would be your advice too, I'm guessing?
To the youngsters in IIM Amritsar, yes, of course, take it seriously. But one more advice I would like to say, that it's not just about profession, not just about marketing, what you do in life. I think the most important thing is just become a good human being. It's nothing better than that.
Absolutely golden words. Thank you so much. That brings us to the session end. So I can actually take a deep breath right now. Over to the students of IIM Amritsar for whatever questions that they have.
Sure.
Look forward
Sure, sir. Narayan, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Our heartfelt thanks to all our dignitaries for making the session truly knowledgeable for all our students with their valuable insights. Also, the rapid fire round was something very different, which helped us to understand the thoughts of all our speakers. Now we will be moving to the question answer round. So firstly, I would request Akriti Agrawal from MBA06 batch to come up with her question. Akriti, over to you.
Right. A very good evening to all the panelists, and I would like to thank you all for such an amazing session. So my question is directed towards Mr. Narayan. I'm so sorry, sir, for taking away your rest time. But I just wanted to understand that like PayPal is a very well-known name in the international market. But then what is it doing in the marketing sphere for developing its share in countries like India and targeting mass markets?
So Akriti, thank you so much. Just before I could catch my breath, you'd come up with a question. So personally, let me thank you for that first. It's a great question. So the reality is, without delving into the specifics of the company's strategy, let me give you a broad overview of how we look at it, right? Like you said, PayPal is a global brand. We are a Fortune 200 company, right? And our niche is actually in the fact that we are a company that's into cross-border payments, right? So today, if you look at India, we are there on the our business is largely a twofold business. There is the consumer side of the business, and there is the merchant side of the network. We're a two-sided network, right? So the merchant side of the business is again split three ways into large enterprises, which would be your named brands like, let's say, a Book My Show, Make My Trip, Yatra, so on and so forth, where we are present. And then there is the other side of the business, which is around SMBs in the unorganized sector. And you could include the freelancers and the casual sellers and all of them there, right? So while we concentrate on the large side of the business, what is more important is we think of ourselves as the champion for the SMB side of it, right? So what we want to do is, the great thing about being in a fintech business, and that too in the payment space, is that it is heavily over-penetrated in India, as is the case with most other sectors, right? But for us, our area of focus is around, cross-border. How do we get more merchants in India, and let's say tier 2 and tier 3, to actually graduate from selling to their local neighborhood to actually selling to, let's say, a foreign customer who's sitting abroad. So it's not about just ensuring a livelihood. It's about seeing how they thrive over a period of time. So when we look at how do we expand this market and what is our strategy around it, we actually want to enable more businesses to go online and then take it beyond borders, right? So that's the way we look at it. I hope answered your question. If not, I'm happy to elaborate.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would request Mohit Kalra from MBA06 batch to come up with the question. Mohit, can you please go ahead?
Yes, thank you. So very good evening to all the panelists, and I would really like to thank you all first for such an insightful session. So my question is, brands work for years to position themselves in the minds of their customers, but looking in the current scenario, many brands are going for repositioning. So let's take the example, Santoor. For years, it has positioned itself as a soap, which represents beauty and confidence. But in the new commercial, they repositioned themselves as a soap that fights germs. So will this new positioning create a discrepancy in the minds of the customers? And how will it affect their decision-making process?
Would you want to direct that to somebody, because nobody is actually venturing forth and putting their neck on the block? So
it will help if you specify the person you want to speak to.
Sir, Aishwarya sir, if you can please elaborate on that.
Okay, so I'll start with the disclaimer.
Mohit, firstly, let me thank you. You pointed the gun at Aishwarya. All yours.
So let me just start with the disclaimer that firstly, I have not seen the Santoor ad, and secondly, definitely can't comment on specific strategy taken by certain brand. But still, I would still say I don't think that is what they mean. I don't think that is what they will do in a longer run. So there are two parts to that, Mohit. First is it's a disaster if you change your brand core. So what I really love about I call something call it as brand essence. What you stand for, right? So what you stand for is a better way, right? Or what you stand for is nurturance. What you stand for is care. So these are this is the core of the brand. Bingo stands for humor. Can I move to safety hygiene? Ridiculous, na? So that is the extremity that you consider in your mind and realize that that's not what you should do, right? So that is the essence. That is what is the heart of the brand. If you take it away, then nothing remains. I think one thing that I also learned a lot from Warren Sharp is that don't overestimate your importance in life of consumer. Consumer की life में बहुत सारे brands and products हैं. So you play a small part in the life of consumer. Even in that also, if you start changing yourself, right, you understand what it means. It's a very typical thing which people say that in a relationship, if you change yourself, right, between you and your partner, what will happen to your relationship? It will really create a strain, right? So that's with this generic gyan in place. Let me just come to the specific point. Santur operates, in my understanding, in definitely what you said about the brand essence or brand core, but they're also into, I think, hand sanitizer space. That is my understanding. They're also into in the personal hygiene space. So there's nothing wrong in reinforcing the core, because ultimately beauty confidence hai, but body saaf bhi to karta hi na. It is also acting as a immunity helper. So I don't think they are trying to change. I'm sure that is not the case. And again, I'll be wrong in guessing it, but nothing wrong in reinforcing the category core. That is the category core. Body ko saaf karna hi iska category core hai. So there's nothing wrong in that. And I'm sure there are different facets of advertising, and definitely they'll come to. I hope I was able to understand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ashwin sir. Now I would request Hitesh Kumar Sharma from MBA 06 batch to come up with this question. Hitesh, please go ahead.
Thank you, man. Good evening to all. And before I begin with my question, I want to thank everyone for the rich conversation you all had. It was really nice and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So my question is that as we begin in the conversation, Aishwarya sir had mentioned after a few months into the lockdown, how people started moving or going for things which are not essentials, but something which are essentials to live life, something like having noodles or a packet of chips. So along with that, it was also, I personally noted that a lot of people started experimenting with food in their idle times, adding that gourmet touch to their homely food. So my question to Lavdeep sir is that what particular observation that you had observed that how people move from staple wheat pulses to adding something as a like olives and basil spices, something like that. So what did you observe personally adding more to their grocery list?
Well, I think first it was very, very dynamic. One started with pent loading of all the staples you will die, right? I mean, die as in as the exaggerated, but yeah, you really that. So, right from to atta, to rice, and then oil. And
so you're not audible.
Am I?
Yes, a little better. Thank you.
Okay. So just let me know if there's an issue. But very soon, which is a matter of 15-20 days, we realized that equally important categories are snacks and beverages. Beverages just went up the roof, by the way, followed by snacks. And snacks, when I said it's across, is a processed food. Is biscuit was one of the highest selling category in modern trade. Britannia had to really, I mean, there was a time when I remember we were talking to the Britannia key account manager. They was literally facing a huge issues on creating and supplying like those. So therefore, and then followed by the trend that started happening about immunity boosters and personal hygiene products, which are soap, hand washes, and things like those. So there was a natural progression as the complexity kept on changing, things kept on changing. But what you see is what you just said was the answer. So this is how the progression happened. Actually, we also saw similarly.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Vaibhav Kapoor from MBA 06 batch to come up with this question. Over to you, Vaibhav.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all the panelists for such a wonderful and an insightful session. So my question is that with the pandemic affecting the way people do almost everything, are marketeers finding it difficult to conduct market research to find out the trends in consumer activity?
If there is no taker, I want to take that. So, can I go ahead?
Sure,
am I audible?
Sure. Yeah, silence is golden, Lavdeep. You should take it.
Sure.
Yeah. So very interesting. The reason I'm taking this is very interestingly, our primary research has come from moved away from a physical meeting to a Google form filling, by the way. And we have huge amount of data coming from consumer through this side, and this becomes so easy to kind of activate. This question, it just goes through a bit.ly link to the customers. It takes about fractions of minutes to kind of fill it, and Google Analytics help you, and Google Forms help you to also analyze lively, right? So this is some of the benefits that technology has given us. So we moved completely from a physical meeting to Google Form based capturing the information through SMS quickly.
So I'll also add a couple of points. And like Lavdeep said, we quickly moved from offline to online, and it was a very difficult decision for us also, because we all believe, and we have been working with this data for many years, and suddenly moving to online had issues, although we continued with our researches. So to give you an example, that generally we reach out to SEC A, B, C with a specific mix which is aligned to the population salience or the contribution salience of that particular target group. The moment you move to online, that's when you cut off the SEC B and C. Largely you reach out only to SEC A1 or A, and in certain cases like the mass brand that we handle, we were able to only reach out to SEC A1 having smartphone access, right? So you're talking about the topmost layer of consumer, and that is why the continuity was not there. We were facing issues as far as the data continuity. So I can't compare the pre versus post, because the population mix has changed. Having said that, yes, we moved completely online, and now we are middle of online plus offline, and some point of time we will go back again to offline for a couple of syndicate researches, right? The case in point in market share data, which comes from Nielsen, cannot happen online only. So it is coming back to this. And having said that, we are also moving completely to online mode right now. I don't even travel. I used to travel a lot, but now we are meeting consumers and retailer or channel partners through video conferencing, and doing reasonably well. So wherever it is impossible, where the data continuity is a problem, we will go back to offline, which is happening right now. And in most of the cases where still things can happen online, we'll continue with that.
So I also want to add something to that. I'm audible, right?
Yes,
okay.
sir, perfect.
Right. So this has nothing to do with market research. What I would say is that, I mean, essentially the question is about marketing under constraints, right? There are certain restrictions which are placed upon us, because of which we have to improvise, jugaad, as they say, right? So if you look at it from a B2B kind of a sector, and one of the things which we had to kind of improvise on. So typically when you do client endorsement videos or things like that, you have to actually be at a client location. Once we started doing webinars and things like that, what it meant was that people were joining in from multiple global locations onto the same platform, which kind of gave us an idea. If we were to do videos, you don't really need to travel anymore. You're getting good bandwidth. Even what we are doing right now, we have the technology available to just snip out each person's video separately, add some quotations next to it, and convert it into a client video if needed, right? So which kind of allowed us, and the additional advantage of something like this is, typically if you ask a person to do a video on the cell phone, you never get it in the format that you want. It's very, very rare that you get a user generated video which you can just use as it is. Either the audio is off, or they shoot it in vertical format or something like that. But when you're doing it on Zoom, you actually can afford to be there when the video is being shot, and then you can edit out the person who is directing and focus only on the person who is being actually shot, right? So there are essentially, all that I'm pointing out to is, constraints allow us to identify new opportunities and newer ways of doing marketing, which is probably one of the lessons which you guys need to keep in mind as well, because there are so many people who are willing to share knowledge at this point in time, because you're seeing constraints placed on marketing, and of course in every other function, the likes of which we have never experienced. So if you search around on net, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you will find enough and more examples of creative ways of doing marketing, which will really help you when you start and go out and become marketers on your own. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Now I would request Anveshi Sharma from MBA 06 batch to come up with her question. Anveshi, over to you.
Good morning, sirs. Thank you for such an informative session. So my question is to Rakesh, sir. There has been a shift in customer experience to customer intimacy, specifically in these tumultuous times. And one of the most important platforms for this change is the personalization. And consumers are increasingly willing to share this data in exchange for personalized attention. And international brands as such are tapping into this. But what are Indian brands doing, like going forward? What are Indian brands doing about this?
Yeah, Anveshi, I think quite a bit of it was mentioned by, I think, Aishwarya and Lavdeep in previous discussion, that whether how do we communicate with the customer and actually develop that brand. Like in our case, if I tell you, 70% of our customers are in rural areas. So how do we connect with them? So, and what kind of message do we tell them? So most of our customers are LPG customers where they want an LPG cylinder at home. So what is the kind of message we tell them and show them? So, and they don't have smartphones. They are not exposed to this digital marketing. What they have, most of them, is a feature based phone, a basic phone. So we have adopted the messaging through SMSs. And also sending through OTPs, some messages, so that they acknowledge those messages, and then OTPs, and then deliveries have been made to you, services have been found okay, so grievance redressal is being done properly or not. So those kind of connects have been made, and these are individual connects. So like there was a debate earlier whether we should be targeting mass or targeting individual. I think ultimately it has to be an individual connect. Every individual is different, and he wants a customized kind of a solution. Today we talk about mass media campaigning because it is cheaper, because it reaches to a large number of people immediately. But if tomorrow digital increases to the extent, I mean, say in 4 or 5 years, that you can still have that reach of the mass through digital and still send customized messages, so nothing like it. So I think we need to move in that direction, and many companies are doing that at the moment, and see that the customized messages and the connect is there with the customers. Ultimately, it is about the value we give to the customer. As they say, you just take care of the customer, and the customer will take care of the competition. So we and the companies are moving in that direction, and through these kind of, as digital progresses, I think this will be leveraged more and more to send customized messages and offerings to the customers.
Thank you so much, sir.
Just to add, Avneshi, it's an important question, and two bits from my side. So personalization at scale, when you do, you require a very strong infrastructure at the back end to be able to see customer as an individual. Okay, particularly when I'm talking about a B2C brands, when you're talking to millions customer. So you'll have to really see personalization should be at an individual level or to a cluster or homogeneous group of customers, right? That's one. Globally, only 7, and this is a recent data by Adobe. Adobe is one of the best infrastructures developed on analytics and personalization. So only 7% organizations at a globe are self-sufficient from an infrastructure point of view to handle personalization at scale. So everybody, not just India, everywhere in the world, all of us are trying to come to the speed and find those sweet spots, because it requires time, and at the same time, it requires a lot of infrastructure development to do that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Varun Nair from MBA 06 batch would be coming up with his question. Varun, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. Good evening, sirs. First of all, it was a great session. It was very informative, and I learned a lot. So my question is towards Harry, sir. Sir, for like in B2B segment, customer outreach is basically through various seminars, expos, and shows. So to get a good engagement. But now since due to this pandemic, everything is locked down. So how feasible it is to conduct such sessions in online platform?
Yeah, it's completely feasible. We are already doing a lot of those kind of activities. In fact, I mean, it is possible even, see, this is an example of such a forum, right? So it is very much feasible. Like I had mentioned in between, during these past 5-6 months, we have already done 9 such events and we are getting good response. It depends entirely on whether your story is correct and, you know, the messaging, you have enough content which the audience wants to consume and you reach the right set of people. So if all those elements are there, it is very much feasible. And I do see that as a trend which will continue in the future as well. I'm not saying that, you know, the physical events and expos and conferences will go away, but we will have a lot more of digital interaction. One amazing thing which has happened, which has not really, you know, not too many people are noticing, is that based on the demand, the technology has also increased and got enhanced. Zoom is not what it was 6 months back, right? I mean, it never had the ability to manage so many people in one go, right? So we have actually moved it to a much more higher level where, you know, so because we are from the pharma industry, there are a lot of audits which happen. Now, some of these audits are actually happening virtually, where you literally have the ability to kind of, you know, see the parts of the campus which they want to see. All of those kind of things are starting to go a little bit more virtual. Now, with the enhancement of technology, with the requirement of bandwidth coming down, and with the ease of a participant being easily able to join in whichever part of the world they are in, we would only see a whole lot more of such activities increasing in the future.
Okay, sir. Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, we will be taking one last question. So I would now request Siddharth M from MBA 06 batch to come up with this question. Siddharth, over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for such an informative session. My question is that now that people have realized there are certain products which are essential and certain products which they can live without, how difficult is it going to be for a firm to market their products which are luxury, which are not necessarily something that people want to buy as an essential?
Okay, I guess, see, Aishwarya and Lavdeep and a lot of panelists are good with it, but I'll give you my 2 cents before they can come in, right? The thing to realize about human nature is that essentials work very differently from what luxury is. Historically, if you've seen, luxury is the one category that does not get affected because of depression, right? And the pandemic is very different because nobody has been able to step out of their homes, right? But largely, if you see, even in the big financial bust that happened in 2008, the one category that does not take a big hit is actually luxury. People don't stop buying cars, right? Because they don't belong to that strata of society where their needs are defined by, you know what, if I don't, if I avoid this, am I going to make more money or am I going to save on it? That's not how luxury works, right? Having said that, if you're talking about, it also depends on the life stage of each and every person. So if somebody is actually arrived in their life, I don't think they're going to put too much thought into, you know, should I buy that next BMW car or the bigger thing that's a show of speech, right? But if you are at a stage where you have to make a choice right now between essentials versus luxury, you will obviously give up on that. But over a period of time, if anything, human beings actually tend to come back to their older habits. It does not go away that soon. So today people might tell you that, you know, digital is the only future. There is nothing that's going to happen apart from that. The reality is each of these mediums will continue to grow. And that's similar to human nature also, right? So that's my 2 cents on it. Aishwarya, Lavdeep and the others.
Yes. Just one addition to that, like you rightly said, there's a concept of revenge buying, which basically says I have been suppressed for a lot and I have not made that term. It actually exists, and that is what we saw, right? And you will see that coming up again and again, that people have been suppressed for really long from their needs and wants. And like I said in the beginning also, the economy cannot survive just basis the needs and want. People have to spend for the economy to grow, and thankfully that is the human nature, and that is what we are seeing right now also, with street food coming up again and people going out and eating out despite the fear and obviously the kind of numbers we are seeing right now with COVID, and that will continue for a longer time. If you remove the impact of recession, otherwise we don't see any, like Naran also said, we don't think that really things will be really bad for others. But yes, we need to consider the impact of recession. People will be out of job, then that is an impact financially, and that's why probably people will not take decision about luxury. But otherwise, you'll not. People will go back to their original. Is our understanding, like Narayan said.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Our heartfelt gratitude to the panelists for answering all the questions for the students of IIM Amritsar. The media and PR cell of IIM Amritsar have created a small video for the guest. So I would now request media and PR cell to please share the video with us. Thank you, media and PR cell, for creating such a wonderful montage of the enlightening session we had with our panelists. We really appreciate your presence. Now, I would request Vimal Sharma to present a vote of thanks. Over to you, Vimal.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are perfectly audible. Go ahead.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you. Respected director, our honorable guests, faculty members, CNBC team, and my dear friends. A very good evening to you all. It's an honor for me to propose a word of thanks on behalf of the Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar. We would like to thank our director, Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, for obliging us with his esteemed presence. We would also extend our heartfelt thanks to Professor Santosh Tiwari and Professor Chetan Chitre for guiding industry interaction cell to uphold the tradition and stature of Pariprekshya'. I propose a hearty word of thanks to all the panelists for gracing this event with their presence. We believe that this will act as a foundation stone for future collaborations. So thank you all for enlightening us with your knowledge and experience. I'm sure the students will benefit from this discussion and will reflect upon this. Furthermore, I thank our exclusive media partner, CNBC TV18, for covering this event. We all are very grateful to the sponsoring organizations and media members. I want to extend our gratitude towards the IT team for the smooth functioning of today's event. This event would not have been a resounding success without the seamless efforts of media and PR cell of IIM Amritsar. We would also extend our gratitude to Team Marco Philic for setting a relevant context for the event and merchandising and sponsorship committee for their constant support. Last but not the least, I thank the students of MBA 05 and 06 batch for their constant support, patience, and engagement. Without you all, this event would not have been possible. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. We really appreciate your time and presence.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the young boys and girls who have been able to put this all together. So hearty congratulations to you for putting this up together. And thank you so much to the director of IIM Amritsar, and also to my co-panelists, and also especially to Mr. Narayan for having fabulously moderated this particular event. Thank you so much to everyone.
So
thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm just going to do a copy paste of whatever Vimal said because it's a long list to repeat. But thanks everyone for having me here. Pleasure being with you this evening. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.